Joy of It podcast. This is a space where we dive into everyday moments, life lessons, and the little sparks of joy that make life worth celebrating. From personal stories to business wisdom and everything in between. Come with me on the journey and as we find the joy in it together. Welcome back. It's been a minute. I know it's been a couple months, but life has been life and things have been thinking, and I just had to take a little break to reset and refocus. These months have been full, especially with it being tax season, but I wanted to take a moment to pause and kind of reset. But I wanted to share some of the things that I learned on my journey when I took a pause. So one of the things that I learned was to appreciate life, appreciate where I am, appreciate where I've been, and not just rush into where I think that I'm supposed to be going next. I think oftentimes we're always so focused on the future that we don't take the opportunity to enjoy where we are currently. And so that's what I decided to take a break to enjoy where I was, because if I continue to keep moving towards the next thing, then I would miss all the beautiful things that are happening in life. Now, life is not great. I'm not saying that by no means, but there are some beautiful moments in the midst of the chaos of life. And so one of the things that kind of made me come to a pause was my birthday. My birthday for me is kind of like my new year. It's the time that I use to evaluate everything. I kind of take a look at coming up to my birthday. I take a look at everything that I started, because my birthday is my checkpoint. So I often start a lot of my new ventures and a lot of my new things. I come to that resolution on my birthday. So Dare to Dream Foundation, which is my nonprofit, that was started on my birthday. My actual business, C. Michelle Enterprises, was started on my birthday. This podcast was, the first episode didn't start on my birthday, but the idea that I am going to start a podcast and I actually announced it was on my birthday as well. So, and that's just a couple things, but my birthday becomes one of those focal points of where I'm going to start everything. So often leading up to my birthday, not only does it make me pause into what I'm going to start, it makes me think about too, what have I done for the year? And have I reached my goals? Have I reached my target? And things of that nature. So this birthday is where it kind of became interesting. I had a whole rollout of everything. So here's what my plan was for my birthday. I've started C. Michelle Enterprises long years ago. C. Michelle Enterprises started back in 2010, February 14th, 2010, which of course is my birthday. My birthday is Valentine's Day, just in case you did not know when my birthday was. So that is when I start, and that's when I do my inventory. So I've been pushing off, really kind of focusing on I focus on my business, but really kind of putting it out there. And so I felt the push over the last couple months to, hey, let's get your website together. Let's go ahead and do a rollout of everything so people can know all the things that is Crystal. And so that's why you may have seen some of the hashtags of all things Crystal, or may have seen may have seen the photo shoot, or may have seen some other things, because that was a part of me releasing my website and See Michelle to the world. But as I was getting ready to do everything, and I had all the pieces, if you know me, you know I had all the pieces together. I drug my feet a little bit on it, but I had all the pieces together. And after we got everything together for my birthday, and I was like, I'm not ready just yet. And I really had to sit down and figure out, why wasn't I ready? Was I not ready because of fear, or was I not ready because it just didn't feel right? Or like, why wasn't I ready? So that's when I decided to take a trip. I decided to take a solo trip for my birthday to really be able to do a pause and reset. And so then that's when I had to realize, in the midst of that trip, which was one of the better trips that I've been on, it was, I tried a lot of new things. I tried skiing. I attempted to try skiing for the first time. And I say attempted because I didn't get very far at all. I did go in a circle. I did go in a couple circles, because I did a whole skiing lesson. So I did go in a couple circles, and then I went up the little lift, not the chair lift, but the little conveyor belt lift. And then I came down the hill, and I fell like probably 4 or 5 times. And I was like, you know what? This is a wrap. This is it. But I did it. So that was the biggest thing, that I actually did it. But anyway, I took that time, and I was in the mountains, and I really took that time to really kind of focus on me, on what I wanted to do and what were my next steps and where I was currently in life. And so in the midst of that, I learned that I needed to give myself grace. A lot of times we have these high expectations of where we should be at certain points, or we compare ourselves to other people, and I know me, I give other people all the grace in the world, but I don't give myself that same grace. I hold myself to a standard that sometimes I think, I'm not going to say that it's impossible, but I hold myself to a standard that I probably should not hold myself to, in a sense, meaning that I give myself an impossible deadline to do something that I already know that life is full. I already know that my plate is full. Why did I give myself a week to do this? And I know that I have no free time to be able to do it. And then when I don't meet that deadline, then I beat myself up about it. But I put myself in an impossible situation. But I have to realize that I have to give myself the same amount of grace that I give everybody else. And I have to be patient with myself to realize that everything's not going to happen in the timeline that I think is going to happen, but that doesn't mean that it won't happen. That doesn't mean that everything isn't happening the way that it really should be happening. And so in giving myself grace, I also realized that I was a work in progress. Like, I'm looking at, oftentimes we end up looking at ourselves, trying to measure ourselves up to the finished product, not realizing that we are an ever-changing work in progress. If you look at who you were today versus who you were 2 weeks ago or 2 months ago, most times you've grown and you've evolved a little bit, or hopefully you've grown and evolved a little bit since who you were 2 years ago. So you have to give yourself the grace to realize that, no, I may not have been completely healed from this. I may not be completely over this, but it doesn't bother me the same way that it did years ago. It doesn't bother me the same way that it did last week. So I got to realize that I am give myself grace and realize that I am a work in progress. And so that's what I had to do for myself. Like, I had to realize that, yes, I have these standards, and yes, I have these goals that I want to be able to meet, but I have to appreciate the small steps. I don't always we look at and we measure ourselves to the big picture of everything. Oh, I want to be this and I want to be that, but don't realize like all the little things that you've done to get to that point, and don't celebrate a lot of those little wins, because it's the little wins that really make the big victory anyway. And so I also had to realize, not only in being a work in progress, that I don't have to wait until the finished product to be able to deliver. And that was one of my biggest things. Like, I would get to because I am an overthinker, and everybody that knows me knows that I'm an overthinker. So I'm going to think everything all the way through. And so oftentimes I wait until we have went all the way through A, B, C, all the way to Z, and sometimes went back around before I even take the first step. And it's like, no, sometimes just take the first step and let's at least get to step C. We ain't got to get all the way to Z right now. Let's at least take step number 1, and let's get to C. And then let's appreciate C. And then, of course, as you get to C, then the other pieces will open up. So you can't wait all the time until you get the final product, or what you believe to be the final product, because oftentimes I have learned that when you have an idea of what things are supposed to look like when you're standing on the outside. But when you get on the inside, you realize, oh, that's not going to work. When you start moving and doing this and stuff, you realize, oh, that's not going to be able to work like that. So I got to be able to reconfigure my plans. But if I would have set this whole rollout from A to Z, and then got in, and then now, according to my initial plan of what the end result looked like, now that looks like I'm failing. But if I would have just took the first step, or first 2 steps, then I have room to be able to grow and have room to be able to navigate it while I'm in the midst of it with the current information that I have. And so that was one big thing for me, because I'm looking at the end result, I measure my success at the wrong part. Because I'm looking at the end result versus looking at the progress. So if I look at the progress, I can measure my success on the proper things. So that was when I tell you that was one of the biggest things for me, is because there's so much so many ideas, and so many, even with my business, Stephen Shell Enterprises. I've had that business since 2010, and I am just now doing my website in 2026. I have people that are just now figuring out that, oh, you do such and such. Yeah, but I've been doing this for years. So yeah, I drag my feet if I can't get to the finished result. So that was one of the things that I really had to realize. The other thing that I realized is that, and this may sound bad, but go with me here, that I really am a big deal. Um, and I think, and I shared this with a group of ladies not too long ago, and I think we oftentimes again measure ourselves up to the wrong standard. Like we look at what we think we ought to be, or we look at what we think we should be doing and all that other kind of stuff, but don't really look at ourselves holistically to realize that I'm really not small as I think I am. They're not weight wise, but just holding weight in the earth. Like there are people that really look up to me or really look up like, man, I really wish I can do this the way that she does that. And I'm looking at it like, I ain't really doing nothing. But if you look at stuff I've mentioned it before, but you look at yourself through somebody else's lens, you will really realize that you really are a big deal. And then not just realizing that you're really a big deal to, kind of boost your head up, but oftentimes you need that boost to be able to get to that next place because because we're not where we want to be at the final product to leave us stagnant. But if we realize that we're a big deal right here, that gives you that boost of confidence, that gives you that momentum to keep going to the next step so that we can finally get to Z and not just stop at A because we ended up measuring ourselves to the wrong standard. So I realized that the way that I think, the way that I process, the way that the comfort that I give people, the peace that I have, like that's really a big deal. Like oftentimes people don't have that. And so I have to appreciate again what I have. Then the other part that I also realized is that if I was to be 100% honest, and I know we talk about finding the joy in everything, and yes, I can find the joy in my birthday and my birthday celebrations, but my birthday is always a pain point for me. Now I try to find the brighter side of it, but it is. Everything didn't necessarily go the way that I wanted my birthday to go. And so there were moments of disappointment where I realized that there are still pieces of me that I still need to deal with in a sense. You know how a lot of times you'll rush past some stuff and you'll be like, oh, well, I'm that stuff don't bother me no more. I've healed from that. I'm over that. But then there's sometimes little reminders that no, you need to go back and kind of go back to the drawing board, and you realize that, okay, I just kind of covered that up. I didn't really deal with the real root of the issue. And so my birthday reminded me this year that there are some places that I didn't really deal with the truth. Like, even though I'm on a healing journey and I'm inviting you all into my healing journey, which is the Joy of It podcast, there are still parts of it that I just kind of covered up. I just put the cover on top of it and kind of went over it. I didn't really actually deal with it. And so my birthday kind of brought that up. And one of the things that I realized that my expectations of people and my expectations of things were misaligned. And I realized that you can't hold people to a standard that you never told them about. And so if you're expecting people to do something for you and you never share that this is important to you, then you can't expect for them to really meet you there. So I can't get upset if people didn't come to a birthday celebration if I didn't tell them how important my birthday was or how important I believe that my birthday is. Oh, I really want to be able to do this. So the way that I realized that I needed to do is that because to me, my birthday is a big deal. I have to make sure that everybody around me knows that, hey, not necessarily, oh, my birthday tomorrow, girl, my birthday tomorrow. Not that, but just, hey, I really want to do something for my birthday. And this is what I'm thinking about doing. I would really love for you to be able to celebrate my birthday because my birthday is a big deal for me. And it's a big turning point in my life. However you want to phrase it, but letting the people around you know that it's important to you. And so, because you can't judge them if they don't know the importance of it. So that was one of the things that I realized. And once I realized that and had those kind of conversations with a couple of my friends, it was like, oh, I didn't really realize that. I thought it was just such and such. And so it was, yeah. But you can't hold people to a standard that you never really told them about. And one other thing, and like I said, I learned a lot on this trip. Like when I tell you I learned a lot on this trip, I really do mean I learned a lot because I was able to really sit with myself. And I think a lot of times we don't take the time to really, we get so caught up in the noise of life that we don't take time to really sit with ourselves. And so I realized that it was kind of time, even though I've done this in various ways, but it was really time to try to choose me. And choosing me was, and oftentimes you will hear people say, well, yeah, I got to choose myself. And then they decide to go on this cutting off spree. And that's not what my version of choosing me is. It wasn't cutting off anybody. It was just making sure that I knew what was important to me and that the people around me knew what was important to me. To not kind of brush off, oh, well, it'll be all right. It'll be all right. And guarding everybody else's feelings and disregarding mine. So that was my version of choosing me, is to make sure that people were aware of how I felt about situations, and not from a confrontational standpoint, but just I couldn't put myself on the back burner, taking care of everybody else all the time and leaving me high and dry. And so, and like I say, it didn't mean that I just stopped loving other people. It just meant that I started including me in the midst of the process too. I started loving me the way that I really was supposed to. And so, like I said, this birthday was allowed me to really reset and bring me back to a level of peace that I've been missing and needing. And I think I'm not going to say that I didn't have it, but I think sometimes life and the struggles of life, and you get so worried about everything else that you miss the good moments and you miss the beautiful times and things of that nature. And so the biggest part that I realized in this birthday is that honestly, this birthday was a little different. It was quieter for me. It was more intentional with myself. It brought me a different level of peace. I learned a different level of peace. And I realized that one of the greatest lessons and one of the greatest things that I can give to myself is the grace for me to just be, and also realizing that I'm a big deal. And also I want you to be able to take that same lesson with you and realize that you're a big deal too, regardless of where you think you are in life or where you want to be in life. That realize that right here, right now, that you are a big deal. And that there's nobody else that can do the things that you do the way that you do it. You were created the way that you were on purpose. And so realize that you're a big deal. And it's time to start acting like it. Not in a conceited way, but in a confident way of, I know who I am, and I know what I have, and I know what I bring to the table, and I know what I bring to every environment that I come to. And begin to really walk fully in that. And when you walk in it and really own that, that's also a different level of peace and understanding that comes with you, that everybody around you begins to see it and begins to not just see it, but respect it as well. So those are the things that I learned for my birthday reset at 41. And that is the reason why I took the break that I did, but I'm coming back. We are coming back bigger and better. So keep your ear out, keep your eyes open. Make sure you like, share, subscribe to the Joy of It podcast, and I will see you soon.